more formal, and this afternoon a little bit more informal and a bit more creative, to get us thinking about what we need to be looking towards in the future and looking for some real key solutions for those young people.
Transition as a word, we forget sometimes, but the Oxford English Dictionary defines it as the process or a period of change from one state or condition to another. And I think it's very fundamental to what we're talking about today to recognise that transition is a process, not an event. Everyone will approach it from their own personal perspective or perspectives, and perhaps this diversity of opinion and the diversity of perspective is part of the reason that we still struggle to identify and implement the best model of practice.
A square table is a unique form of conversation. It aims to be in a space between the types of conversation that we can manage between 2, 3 or 4 of us from time to time at the one end of the spectrum, and at the other end of the spectrum the environment of a conference. Can you capture in a sentence, Jane, what it's been like over the last 4 and a bit years?
It's just been a struggle. It's been one fight after another, and instead of relaxing and enjoying the time we have with Dylan, which is very precious, you're just fighting, because every day there's something to sort out, because there's nobody at the end of the phone. It's traumatic, I think. It's probably the best word.
The only thing that we're guaranteed to keep is his Hope House visits, because nothing can go to parallel until he's 18. So we haven't got anything sorted out after the end of the month.
Which was actually mirroring what Jane just said, which was they want to enjoy the time we have. And really the message from one of these young guys was, I want to enjoy life, I want to live. And that means that I want to make friends, I want to go and have some beers, I want to go to university, I want to leave home.
Mirroring what the other parents have said is that one service doesn't kick in until the other one finishes. So you can do as much preparation as you want, but actually what happens is until one service ends, the other one is not picked up. She's scared because she feels that she hasn't got a familiarity with the service that with which she is going to engage in the future.
Because I think what is recognised, actually what there is in the literature about transition, which is not an awful lot, but what is there is supportive of, in health, running joint clinics and providing a crossover service, not only from a doctor and specialist nurse point of view, but also what we've been experiencing in the transitions that we've run in Wales is that the district nurse and the CCNs will cross over, and the maximum period we've managed for that is 6 months. But that's very important because the devil is in the detail of looking after these young people, and the only way they're going to feel comfortable is if they start to get a relationship with a new bunch of new faces, and that takes time. However you look at it, it just needs the time to be put in. So that crossover service is something that's very important. So it does happen in clinics, not all, but hopefully that will increase with time. Certainly can happen with your care package with DNs and CCNs, and I think that's very important. So there shouldn't be this, one day it's something, the next day it's something else.
And for me it's a real embarrassment that it's not one thing ending and the other thing starting. It's one thing ending and nothing starting until 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 months. And there's that bridging that gap. The note here from a parent: the adult learning disability team refused to attend meetings before Kate was 18, as they did not consider themselves involved in Kate's care until she was 18 years old. So it just stops.
We were speaking to a young man recently at Hope House who has just finished actually accessing Hope House, but his social care package has all been set up. There was no problem, it would seem, in the interface between children's and adults' care. However, the package that is now in place, in his words, I've got carers who sit using their Facebook and then turn around and ask me if I want a drink, and then go back to their Facebook again. So there's something about that completely different culture and care being provided by agencies and so on, without that actual interest in the young person themselves.
Quite interested in the discussion that is essentially very solution focused at the moment, but the solutions seem to be being discussed are things like, make sure you've got policy in place, make sure you've got good pathways in place, you can design new services to fill gaps where services are already meant to be filling those gaps. But actually, what happens on the ground day to day is that services are delivered and care is delivered by individuals, individual professionals and others in support roles. So one of the areas I think that would be quite interesting to consider is how best to make sure that the people who are in the contexts where they're meant to be doing things actually do deliver the things they're meant to be delivering, and have the attitude that means that they take that kind of more person-centred approach and take their role very seriously.
I think we need to do more about matching individual carers to young people, and that's not just around skills, it's around personality and interests as well, and it's only when we get that match really right and the carer sees their accountability to the young person that some of these issues can be resolved.
Because our aim is to ensure that we provide the best service possible for the people of Wales throughout all the chronic illnesses and with children's illnesses as well. We just really want to encourage a joined up approach, and we want everybody to feed into the process, because that will help us then determine what services need to be out there and what provision we need to make in terms of budgets as well.
If you go back to the key worker role, that's who should have the information. And one of the things that I have been completely taken aback by in the past 18 months is that people doing jobs, I know more, they're not aware of the facilities that are available and everything else. So I'm telling the social worker, how do you write a care plan for somebody you've never met? And how can you say to a parent of any child or anybody that, whether it's a disabled child, whether it's somebody in adult care, whichever, well, I'm only temporary, so there's no point in coming to meet him, really, is there?
In terms of organisations, often will not share, will not partner with each other because they are ultimately interested in their own survival rather than necessarily serving the people they're meant to be working with.
But local area coordination offers us a different way of thinking about this, and this is where one person has a responsibility for getting the local knowledge, even knowing more than you do, Jane, about what's going on locally, which will be more than what a social worker can do, more than what you can find out on websites. And they're the people that keep connected to families in a kind of key worker style and make sure they know what's going on, they have the resources available to them, they know what's what and what they're entitled to as well.
The whole system's advice, anywhere that you need to ring and make an appointment to go and see somebody, is just thrown away.
It's not that.
It's just not going to happen.
No,
This
it's
is
the
what's
best
happening.
bits of key worker.
Yeah, absolutely. You need somebody who is just dedicated to doing that, to making sure that everybody, professionals and families, have all the right information.
Despite being proactive and wanting to be ahead of the game, the systems themselves are sometimes set up to cause problems.
Feeling that there are local needs, there are local resources, geography, population, size, and so on. If we try too hard to get an overwhelming umbrella that covers the whole of Wales and directs everything, we're going to lose a lot of the benefit, and people will slip through the net because the local services are not being used effectively. So I think you need that overarching organisation coordination, but you also need to mesh that with local specific requirements, needs, and the resources that are developed in the local areas.
I think the parent should have a say, who's going, because you need to work together, and that is the important thing. There's no point someone coming in who's a stranger to the family and putting this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. You need to work together, because at the end of the day, it's about our children. I don't expect a lot from the system. At the end of the day, I am his parent and I take my responsibilities, and I don't expect someone else to look after my child.
It's not just about having somebody constant in their life. It's about having someone that they can trust and have confidence in. but that takes time.
To change the fantastic discussion that happened this morning, which was brilliantly facilitated, and asked a so what question. What is it that we want to be recommending to the Welsh Government on the basis of what we've heard this morning? So let's imagine you've got a magic wand and you can do anything you want to do to make Wales the best place in the world for supporting families and young people. Not just UK, in the world.
There are lots of different ideas, but I think the most radical would involve genetic engineering and cloning all the really good professionals.
As leaders, you have responsibility for all the services that are currently available to families and young people, and you have the power to make them look however you want them to look. So it's not quite our magic wand, it's what actually could happen in Wales, actually, if you were in charge.
In no particular order, but actually they are. Clearly defined roles and expectations of all involved and accountability for all actions. Clear pathways to access services and active coordination and funding to do so. Transition key worker support vital.
Pooled budgets for Wales policy on transition.
Developing further education provision locally for young people with complex health needs. Multi-agency transitional care unit in the north and the south. And shared budgets.
Multi-agency teams with no boundaries. Integrated IT systems and databases enhancing access to information.
A coordinated strategic needs assessment and forward planning based on strong research. And mandatory early involvement of all relevant services, especially adult social services.
Coming back to reality, but not quite reality, and say, okay, if I was leading this with the existing resources, what would I do? And then seeing where the consensus was on the tables of the top 3 things. And now we get a chance to reflect on everybody's perspectives and decide what you think are the priorities.
So I think all those groupings are equally important, and there's not one really that we shouldn't be thinking about. So the next stage for many of us is to think about, well, how are we going to do this and not stop the momentum?